Welcome back to the shop, guys. Over the past few months, several people have asked me about C5 Supercharger maintenance and what's all involved, and it just so happens it's springtime here in the Midwest, and it's time for me to do full supercharger maintenance on my C5, so let's get started.
Toys for life.
There are 4 maintenance items that you need to do periodically to centrifugally supercharge systems like the Vortech setup that I got from A&A and I installed on my C5 a couple years ago. First is the most common item, and that is to occasionally check the supercharger's fluid level. Now, I make it a habit to check my engine oil level about every other tank full, and to keep things incredibly simple, I just go ahead and check the supercharger's fluid level at the same time. Now keep in mind, this is only if you have a supercharger that has its own internal reservoir that is not connected to and does not share oil with the engine. For instance, with Vortech superchargers, if you have one of their V3 head units, which is quite common by the way, and it is the one that I have, then it does have its own self-contained internal oil reservoir, so let's check it. First, I'm going to go ahead and make sure the C5 is on a level surface. That will ensure an accurate reading. Then I'm going to go ahead and remove the AC plug and set it out of the way, so I've got clear and direct access to the lower brass plug, which includes the dipstick. In case you're wondering, that upper brass plug contains a vent. That way when the gear oil and the air inside the case expand and contract with heat and cold, it doesn't force the gear oil out past the seal on the shaft. Now that I've got the dipstick out, I'm just going to wipe it off quick and reinsert it all the way, gently screwing it in, and then I'll remove it one more time. The oil just needs to be registering within this hash area. It'll be on the lower end if your supercharger is at room temperature, and it'll be on the higher end if you're checking it while it's hot. And as you can see, mine's just fine. You may have noticed that when I removed the dipstick plug, I was using a screwdriver when in fact that's supposed to be an Allen head. Well, things don't always go as planned, and for some reason this soft brass plug finally gave up and stripped when I was trying to remove it. I had to end up drilling it a little bit. I used an easy out and that didn't quite work, so I had to drill it a little bit more. And then I tried another type of extractor and this finally got the plug out. So to remedy this issue, I just put the plug in a vise and using a cutoff wheel, I cut a groove in it. And now it has all kinds of surface area for the screwdriver to grab, and why they ever use this soft brass when making plugs like this is a mystery to me. Next, let's talk about changing the Vortech supercharger fluid, and for that, Vortech requires that you change it after the first 2,500 miles, and then after that, every 7,500 miles, and if you do that, you'll maintain your warranty. The supercharger holds only 4 ounces of oil, and of course, Vortech has their own proprietary blend of oil that you must use to maintain your warranty. The good news is you can get 3 bottles of this from A&A for about $45, so that equals about $15 every 7,500 miles, which is not so bad. When changing my supercharger oil, I like to make sure that it's warm and recently run. My thinking is that if there's any debris or small metal particles from the gears in that oil, I want to make sure that it's suspended so that when I open up the drain plug, all of that debris will exit as well. So now, being as how my C5 is cold, oh dear, I'm just gonna have to take it for a spin to stir things up. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing up on the lift so I have easy access to the drain. Then I'm going to go ahead and remove the AC plug. I'll pull the dipstick out, which will allow the oil to flow freely out of the head unit. Remove the drain plug. I like to drain it into a clear glass jar. That way I can easily see any debris. I'll go ahead and reinstall the drain plug. And in case you're wondering, the remote drain hose just goes straight up into the supercharger unit, which makes this job a breeze. Moving back up to the top, I've got a little hose attached to my supercharger fluid. Just insert it in the hole and just slowly let it all flow into the supercharger unit. And then when I'm done, go ahead and reinstall the dipstick tube. But next, let's move on to removing, cleaning, oiling, and replacing the air filter element. The air filter resides underneath this black metal panel, designed to keep the cold air below and the hot air from the engine above. So to remove it, we just have to remove these 4 screws and we'll have full access. Here's a view of the air cleaner in its natural habitat where it has access to plenty of cold air. So to remove it, we'll remove the clamp from the supercharger and lift it out of the way.
Using the aerosol can, spray the oil evenly along the crown of each pleat with the spray nozzle approximately 3 inches away. Ensure that no excess oil is dripping from the filter and reinstall the filter back onto your intake system.
Next, let's talk about the belt tension. ANA says it has to be tight, but not extremely tight. I've had this for a number of years, and this is always the amount of deflection that I've had, and I've had no squeal or slippage. So the first step, if you do need to adjust your belt, is to go underneath the C5. There is a tensioner pulley on the ANA system. In order to adjust it, the first thing we need to do is rotate this clockwise. And you can also see there's a little hole kind of at like the 2 o'clock position in the tensioner. And while I rotate this clockwise, and I can't get the camera in here when I'm doing it, but when I rotate it clockwise, I'm going to insert a 5/16 drill bit into that hole and lock it in kind of the position where it's not providing tension to the belt. And then we'll move back to the top. All right, now we're back up top. First thing we have to do is loosen the 2 bolts here on the left-hand side of the bracket. Loosening these 2 will allow you to slide the adjuster pulley. Once you've got those loose, we're going to install a wrench on that right-hand side of the bracket, and we'll be pulling on this. This is what is going to allow us to adjust the tension. It's a reverse thread bolt, so it will not loosen up. And once you've got the tension exactly where you want it, using the ratchet on the left, you just go ahead and tighten down those 2 bolts that we loosened a second ago, and you're done. Then just go ahead one more time and check the tension of the belt. If it's where you want it, then we move back down underneath one more time and simply remove the 5/16 drill bit that we used to lock the tensioner pulley. Ta-da! Come on. Come on.